Why do the hero, the lover, the rebel, and the ruler appear in every age? A sword rises from stone. A masked figure enters a burning palace. A fool laughs before a king. What if these characters were never just characters, but forces living inside you? The 12 archetypes. Which one are you? Carl Jung believed that the human mind does not begin as an empty page. Beneath our personal memories, he proposed a deeper layer of recurring images and psychological patterns. The mother, the hero, the ruler, the trickster, the wise old figure. He called these patterns archetypes. But there is an important distinction. Jung never published one official list of 12 personality types. The familiar 12 archetype system came later, inspired by Jung and organized by writers such as Carol Pearson. So, this is not a diagnosis. And it is not a box that defines you forever. It is a map of the stories your personality may be living through right now. By the end of this video, you will recognize the archetype shaping your decisions and the shadow it may be hiding. Imagine Britain before King Arthur. The kingdom is divided. Old rulers fight for power. Roads are unsafe. Trust has disappeared. The people are waiting for someone who can bring order to chaos. Then, a boy approaches a sword trapped inside a stone. Arthur is not the strongest man in the kingdom. He is not an experienced warrior. He does not yet understand the responsibility waiting for him. But he reaches for the sword, and the impossible becomes possible. At first, Arthur carries the energy of the innocent. He still believes that goodness matters, that corruption can be defeated, that the world can be repaired. But the moment he draws the sword, another force awakens. The hero. Arthur must prove himself through struggle. He must face enemies, doubt, and fear. He must become capable of carrying what fate has placed in his hands. Then comes Merlin. Merlin sees what Arthur cannot. He understands hidden patterns, reads the movement of events, and transforms the boy's understanding of power. He carries the wisdom of the sage and the transformative vision of the magician. But eventually, courage and wisdom are not enough. Arthur must become the ruler. A ruler cannot live only for personal glory. A true ruler must create order, protect others, make difficult decisions, and accept responsibility for consequences that may never be fully controlled. Then, the kingdom begins to fracture. Lancelot, the great warrior, becomes divided between loyalty and desire. The hero is overtaken by the lover. Morgan Le Fay challenges the order Arthur has built. She carries the energy of the rebel, the force that exposes weakness in a system and refuses to obey simply because authority demands it. Each of these forces has value, but each also has a shadow. The hero's courage can become pride. The lover's devotion can become betrayal. The ruler's responsibility can become control. The rebel's hunger for freedom can become destruction. Arthur's tragedy begins when these forces stop balancing one another. That is why the legend survives. It is not only the story of a king, it is the story of a mind. The kingdom is the psyche, the court is the personality, and every character represents a different way of meeting life. The 12 archetypes can be understood through 3 basic human needs: the need for safety and belonging, the need for change and achievement, and the need for freedom, connection, and meaning. Let us begin with safety. First, the innocent. The innocent wants to believe that life can still be good. Its strength is hope, trust, and moral clarity. When everyone else becomes cynical, the innocent remembers that goodness is still possible. But its shadow is denial. It may ignore danger, trust too easily, or believe that positive thoughts can replace difficult action. Core belief: if I remain good, everything will be all right. Second, the everyman. The everyman wants to belong. This archetype values honesty, equality, and solidarity. It distrusts arrogance and reminds us that ordinary people matter. Its strength is empathy. Its shadow is self-erasure. The everyman may hide talent, reject ambition, or remain powerless because standing out feels like betrayal. Core belief: no one should have to face life alone. Third, the caregiver. The caregiver protects, supports, and heals. It notices suffering before others do and often becomes the emotional center of a family, team, or community. Its strength is compassion. Its shadow is martyrdom. The caregiver may give until nothing remains, then quietly resent the people it chose to save. Core belief: my value comes from being needed. Fourth, the ruler. The ruler creates order. It thinks in terms of responsibility, standards, systems, and long-term stability. Its strength is stewardship. Its shadow is control. The desire to protect can become rigidity, micromanagement, or the belief that no one else is competent enough to lead. Core belief: if I lose control, everything will collapse. Now come the archetypes of change. Fifth, the hero. The hero seeks worth through challenge. Its strength is courage. When others freeze, the hero acts, but its shadow is permanent warfare. Without an enemy, crisis, or obstacle, the hero may no longer know who it is. Core belief: I must prove my worth. Sixth, the rebel. The rebel sees what is broken. It challenges hypocrisy, rejects dead traditions, and destroys structures that no longer serve life. Its strength is liberation. Its shadow is destruction without direction. The rebel may become so addicted to opposition that it keeps fighting even after the fight has lost its meaning. Core belief: freedom begins when the old order breaks. Seventh, the creator. The creator transforms imagination into form. A painting, invention, company, song, theory, or story begins as something that exists only in the mind. Its strength is originality. Its shadow is perfectionism. The creator may endlessly revise, begin too many projects, or protect the ideal so fiercely that nothing is ever completed. Core belief: I must bring something new into the world. Eighth, the magician. The magician sees hidden connections. It understands that changing a belief, symbol, or perspective can transform an entire life. Its strength is transformation. Its shadow is manipulation. Insight can become a tool for controlling others, and vision can become fantasy without responsibility. Core belief: change the inner world, and the outer world will follow. Finally, the archetypes of meaning. Ninth, the explorer. The explorer needs freedom. It leaves familiar territory to discover new places, ideas, identities, and ways of living. Its strength is authenticity. Its shadow is restless escape. The explorer may abandon every commitment when novelty fades, confusing movement with growth. Core belief: somewhere beyond this life is the life that truly belongs to me. 10th, the lover. The lover seeks connection. It is drawn toward intimacy, beauty, devotion, sensuality, and emotional depth. Its strength is presence. Its shadow is self-loss. The lover may become possessive, avoid necessary conflict, or sacrifice personal truth to preserve a bond. Core belief: life becomes real when I am deeply connected. 11th, the sage. The sage seeks truth. It observes, studies, questions, and tries to understand what exists beneath appearances. Its strength is clarity. Its shadow is detachment. The sage may analyze life instead of living it, hiding from uncertainty behind knowledge. Core belief: if I understand enough, I will avoid error. And 12th, the jester. The jester brings play into a world that takes itself too seriously. It uses humor to release tension, expose hypocrisy, and remind powerful people that they are still human. Its strength is liberation through laughter. Its shadow is avoidance. The Jester may hide pain inside comedy or turn every serious moment into an escape. Core belief: life is too fragile to be taken completely seriously. These archetypes are not 12 separate species of person. They are 12 human potentials, and all of them can exist within the same mind. Most people identify with an archetype by asking which one sounds the most impressive. That is usually the wrong question. Do not begin with the figure you admire. Begin with the pattern that repeatedly controls your choices. Your dominant archetype is often revealed by 3 things: what you desire most, what you fear most, and what you automatically become under pressure. The Innocent says, protect hope. The Everyman says, do not leave anyone behind. The Caregiver says, someone must take care of them. The Ruler says, bring the situation under control. The Hero says, face the challenge and win. The Rebel says, break the system before it traps you. The Creator says, make something worthy of your vision. The Magician says, find the hidden pattern and transform it. The Explorer says, do not allow life to imprison you. The Lover says, protect the connection. The Sage says, understand what is really happening. And the Jester says, do not let fear steal the joy from this moment. Which command feels most familiar? More importantly, which one feels both noble and exhausting? That question matters because the shadow often reveals the archetype more clearly than the ideal. Consider the hero at work. They accept every difficult assignment. They become the person everyone calls during a crisis. From the outside, this looks like ambition and courage. But beneath it may be a hidden belief. If no one needs me to fight, perhaps I have no value. Or consider the Caregiver in relationships. They repeatedly choose people who need support, healing, or rescue. They give advice, time, patience, and emotional energy. Then one day they realize that love has become unpaid emotional labor. Their kindness was real, but so was their need to be indispensable. Now consider the Explorer. They change jobs, cities, goals, or relationships whenever life begins to feel predictable. They call it freedom. Sometimes it is freedom. But sometimes they are not moving toward a new life. They are escaping the discomfort of building one. The Sage can fall into the same trap in a different form. They read, research, analyze, and prepare. They understand every possible outcome, but they delay action, because reality is never as controllable as theory. Your archetype is not simply what you do well. It is the story you keep repeating, even when that story begins to hurt you. And you are almost certainly not only one archetype. You may be a hero at work and a caregiver at home. A confident ruler may become an abandoned everyman when a relationship ends. A peaceful innocent may become a rebel after discovering that the institution they trusted was built on deception. Different archetypes emerge in different situations and stages of life. Growth does not mean becoming a more extreme version of your favorite archetype. Growth usually means developing the force that balances it. The innocent needs the sage's ability to face unpleasant facts. The hero needs the caregiver's respect for vulnerability. The explorer needs the lover's willingness to remain. The sage needs the hero's ability to act before every question is answered. The creator needs the ruler's discipline to finish the work. The jester needs the rebel's courage to treat some problems seriously. So ask yourself, where does my greatest strength become destructive? The hero's courage becomes aggression. The caregiver's compassion becomes self-erasure. The sage's intelligence becomes emotional distance. The lover's devotion becomes dependency. The ruler's responsibility becomes domination. The explorer's freedom becomes avoidance. The shadow does not mean that the archetype is evil. It means the archetype has become unconscious. And whatever remains unconscious begins to direct your life without asking permission. These patterns become even more striking when we move beyond a single tradition. The cultures of the world did not create identical stories. Their religions, values, histories, and symbols are profoundly different. But human beings everywhere have faced recurring experiences: danger, love, loss, power, duty, chaos, belonging, and death. So similar psychological roles appear again and again. The hero can be seen in figures as different as Heracles, Arjuna, and Mulan. Heracles must endure impossible labors. Arjuna must confront duty on a battlefield where every choice carries moral pain. Mulan enters danger because responsibility demands more than obedience to an assigned role. These are not the same story, but each asks a similar question. What must a person become when fear is no longer a reason to retreat? The caregiver also appears across traditions. Demeter searches for her lost daughter. Isis protects and restores what has been broken. Guan Yin becomes associated with hearing suffering and responding with compassion. These figures should not be collapsed into one another, but each gives symbolic form to the human need for protection, mercy, and restoration. Then, there is the trickster. Hermes steals and deceives. Anansi survives through intelligence and wit. Coyote crosses boundaries and disrupts the expected order. The trickster may be comic, dangerous, creative, or all three at once. It reminds a culture that rules are necessary, but that rules can also become prisons. And the rebel appears wherever a figure challenges divine, social, or political authority. Prometheus defies the gods and brings fire to humanity. His rebellion gives human beings power, but it also brings punishment. The story does not present rebellion as purely good or purely evil. It presents rebellion as dangerous, creative, and costly. That is the archetypal pattern. Archetypes endure not because every culture secretly tells one identical story. Stories travel, civilizations influence one another, and similar human problems can produce similar symbolic answers. But beneath those differences, certain questions return. Will you trust? Will you fight? Will you care? Will you belong? Will you create? Will you rebel? Will you lead? Will you search? Will you love? Will you understand? Will you transform? And when life becomes unbearable, will you still be able to laugh? So, which archetype are you? Do not choose the one you admire most. Look for the pattern that creates both your greatest strength and your most familiar problem. Maybe you are the hero, always searching for another battle, the caregiver protecting everyone except yourself, the explorer, moving forward because standing still feels dangerous, or the sage, understanding life from a safe distance instead of entering it. Write your strongest archetype, or the one you feel is missing from your life, in the comments. Because the goal is not to become one perfect character. It is to become conscious enough to know when to fight, when to care, when to lead, when to question, when to remain, and when to let go. Subscribe to Archetype Unbound for more explorations into mythology, psychology, and the ancient patterns still shaping the modern mind. Your story may be personal, but the forces moving through it are far older than you think.